Brucha habayim. I'm going to do most of this in English, however, so please follow along with me. I'd like to spend a minute on what we've accomplished here at Schechter, because I think it's important, not just for people in Israel, but for Jews all throughout the world. First start, and you've seen the different branches we have. We have the Schechter Rabbinical School, which educates rabbis for Israel and Europe. And my wife and I have just returned from a week in Europe back to Israel, and we had the privilege of learning, studying, and spending Shabbat with a number of our graduates in Budapest, in Paris, and in London, and it was a very energizing and enthusiastic experience for both of us that we will remember for a long time. But we're not just about rabbis. Our Tali schools educate over 40,000 children, and when we give you numbers like that, that's great, but all of them have families, these children. And we have had experiences running into people who say, well, why do you live part of the year in Israel? And I go, I live here because I'm the chairman of Machon Schechter, and they don't know what Machon Schechter is. And I say, oh, do you know Tali? And more often than not, I get the answer yes. And I've gotten answers like, I now light Shabbat candles because my children went to Tali, I've started to study, and that is what we are about. And so it is not just the children we are educating with Tali, it is the families. And I hope that when we celebrate 10 years and 30 years more in the future, rather than 40,000 children, it will be substantially all the children in the secular school system. Midreshet Schechter, which used to be called Midreshet Yerushalayim, has specialized in adult education and worked first mainly with Russian speakers, beginning with the wave of Russians coming over in the early 90s. But in the last 10 years has really branched out to the general population. It runs our Neve Schechter Center in Neve Tzedek in Tel Aviv, and I encourage you all to go there. It's one of the oldest buildings outside of the wall of Yafo that we spent 4 years restoring to the splendor that it was 100 years ago. And the programming there is unique and has drawn in over 10,000 people in the last year, its first full year of operation. In addition to that, Midreshet Schechter also runs programs in the Ukraine, which is a country that has been torn, as we all know from the news. And we are running it on both sides of the war that is going on there. So we have a school in the Russian bloc, we have school in Kyiv, we have Kihilot there, and it has been a real challenge, but we are continuing to keep the spirit of the Jews of the Ukraine on both sides of the conflict as strong as can be, and to help them out. And last but not the least, our graduate school 2 years ago passed over 1,000 graduates, and at the graduation tomorrow there will be over 80 additional graduates added to the number of people out there spreading the message and the word of Schechter about teaching pluralistic Judaism throughout the society. So we have much to be proud of, but we have much more to do to continue to impact Israeli society. Most of you will have seen the news in Rehovot about the mayor canceling B'nai Mitzvah for disabled children because the mayor does not believe in pluralistic Judaism and would not allow it to be held in a non-Orthodox synagogue. And we need to continue to educate Israelis of all different streams about the importance of being an open and tolerant society. The last thing is Professor Rabbi David Golinkin has headed Schechter for the last 14 years, 12 years plus since our accreditation. He, under the rules of Malag, the Israel Higher Education Authority, has reached the end of his term and will be moving on to a new role, still continuing to work both as a professor at Schechter and with all of the 4 amutot that comprise Schechter, and working both in Israel and in the U.S. And I want to just thank him for his efforts over these years. Schechter is not the same as it was 12 years ago or 14 years ago. It's a much bigger and much broader institution with much more impact on Israel. I would also like to welcome his successor, who will be president of Machon Schechter, who I'm looking forward to work with, Professor Doron Bar, and subject to approval from Malag, he will become the next president, the 4th president of Machon Schechter. So later in the year, after the Malag has approved it, we will have a celebration to celebrate David's 14 years running Schechter, but I just wanted to offer him my thanks for a job well done. Kol HaKavod.